The engines of the Terra Nova went quiet as the ship touched down on the green world. Captain Jake Morrison looked out the window at the strange new planet. Trees that looked like purple umbrellas covered the land as far as he could see. 2. Suns hung in the orange sky, making everything glow with warm light. "Air readings are good," said Dr. Lisa Martinez from her seat at the science station. She was a small woman with dark hair who loved studying new life forms. "We can breathe." "Outside without suits?" "Good," Jake said. He was a tall man with gray hair who had been flying ships between the stars for 20 years. "Ryan, get your team ready. We go out in 1 hour." Ryan Blake nodded from where he stood by the door. He was the security chief, a big man with scars on his hands from old fights. 3 other security officers stood behind him, checking their weapons. The Terra Nova had traveled for 3 years to reach this planet. Earth needed new worlds for people to live on. The old planet was getting too crowded. This world, called Kepler 442b by the scientists, looked perfect. It had water, air, and plants. Maybe it would be humanity's new home. Jake walked down the ramp first, breathing the alien air. It smelled like flowers and rain. The ground under his feet was soft and covered with moss that glowed blue when he stepped on it. Dr. Martinez came next, already taking out her tools to study the plants. Ryan and his team followed, their eyes watching the forest for danger. "It's beautiful," Lisa said, kneeling down to look at a flower that sang when the wind touched it. "I've never seen anything like this." They had only been walking for an hour. When they heard the sound, it was like music, but not quite. The notes went up and down in a pattern that made Jake's teeth hurt. Ryan raised his gun, looking around for the source. "Wait," Lisa said, holding up her hand. "I think it's trying to talk to us." The singing got louder. Then, from behind a group of tall trees, they came. The beings were like walking crystals, each one about 7 feet tall. Their bodies were made of what looked like clear glass, but inside, colored lights moved like slow lightning. They walked on legs that looked too thin to hold them up, but they moved with grace. The lead crystal being stopped 10 feet away from the humans. The music came from it, rising and falling in complex patterns. Jake had heard many alien languages before, but this was different. It felt like the creature was painting pictures in the air with sound. "Hello," Jake said slowly, hoping his words would translate through the small device on his belt. "We are humans. We come in peace." The crystal being's inner lights changed. From blue to gold, the music it made became softer, more welcoming. Then, to everyone's surprise, words came from the translator device. "Welcome, sky travelers. I am Zeflos, speaker for the Veltar people. We have watched your metal birdland from afar." Lisa stepped forward, her eyes wide with excitement. "You speak our language?" "Your talking box learns quickly," Zeflos said. The lights in his crystal body pulsed with each word. "We have been listening to your words since you arrived. Your sounds are strange, but not unpleasant." Jake felt relief wash over him. First contact was always dangerous. Some alien species attacked strangers right away, others ran and hid. But these Veltar seemed friendly. "We come from a world called Earth," Jake said. "We are looking for a place where our people can live. We do not want to cause harm." Zeflos made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Your world must be very far away. We welcome you to our world, but we must warn you. This place has great danger." Ryan stepped closer to Jake. "What kind of danger?" The crystal being's lights dimmed to a dark red. "The Shadow Maw, it is death that walks. It is the reason we live. In the high places, away from the ground." Lisa looked around the peaceful forest. Birds that looked like flying flowers moved between the trees. Small animals that might have been rabbits, if rabbits were purple and had 6 legs, hopped through the grass. "This place looks safe to me." "The Shadow Maw sleeps during the day," Zeflos explained. "When the sun sets, it wakes, it hunts, it kills. For as long as the Veltar have lived, we have feared it. Our cities are built in the trees, high above the ground, where it cannot reach." Jake had read about apex predators before they left Earth. Every world had them. Big, dangerous animals that sat at the top of the food chain. Earth had lions, bears, sharks, crocodiles. This world had something called a shadow maw. Tell us about this creature, Jake said. Zephylos made a low, sad sound. It is larger than any Veltar. 12 feet tall when it stands. Its skin is like armor. Our weapons do not hurt it. It has claws longer than your arm and teeth like knives. But worst of all, it thinks, it plans, it remembers. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Smart predator, that's always trouble. Smart? Zephylos repeated. Yes, that is your word for it. The shadow maw learns from each hunt. If we block one path, it finds another. If we hide in one place, it learns to look there. Some of our people think it is not just an animal, but a demon. Lisa was taking notes on her tablet. How many of them are there? We do not know. They are hard to count. They move alone in the darkness. Sometimes we see signs of them, claw marks on trees, tracks in the mud. But we never stay to study them. That would be death. Jake looked back at his ship. The Terra Nova was strong, but it was meant for space travel, not fighting ground battles. They had weapons, but nothing designed for hunting big predators. How? Do your people survive? Jake asked. We live high, Zephylos said. Our cities are in the tall trees. We have bridges between them, made of crystal like our bodies. We grow our food in hanging gardens. We never come down to the ground after the sunset. Even during the day we are careful. And this has worked for your people? For thousands of years. But it is not living, it is just not dying. We cannot explore our own world. We cannot grow as a people. The shadow maw keeps us trapped. Jake looked at Ryan and Lisa. His security chief was thinking about weapons and tactics. The scientist was thinking about ecosystem balance and predator behavior. Jake was thinking about something else entirely. Have you ever tried to fight back? Jake asked. Zephylos' lights flickered with something that might have been confusion. Fight? Against the shadow maw? That would be suicide. No weapon can pierce its hide, no trap can hold it. No plan can outwit it. But you've never actually tried. Why would we try? We know it cannot be done, Jake smiled. It was not a mean smile, but it was the kind of smile that Ryan recognized. It was the smile Jake got when he was about to do something that others thought was impossible. Zephylos, Jake said, would you like to show us to your city? We would like to learn more about your people and your world. Of course. But please, sky travelers, promise us you will not try to fight the shadow maw. We do not want to lose our new friends to the darkness. Jake nodded. We promise to be careful. But as they followed Zephylos through the forest toward the crystal cities and the trees, Jake was already thinking. Humans had not become the dominant species on Earth by avoiding apex predators. They had become dominant by hunting them. The shadow maw had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks had passed since the humans landed on the Veltar world. The Terra Nova crew had built a small camp near the crystal cities in the trees. They had learned to climb the rope bridges and eat the strange fruits that the Veltar grew in their hanging gardens. The two species were becoming friends. Dr. Lisa Martinez spent her days studying the local plants and animals. She found creatures that could change color like chameleons, flowers that moved toward sound, and trees that grew crystal instead of bark. Every day brought new discoveries. Captain Jake Morrison worked with the Veltar leaders to plan a permanent human settlement. The planet had everything humans needed: water, air, fertile soil, and mild weather. It could be a new home for millions of people from Earth. Ryan Blake and his security team practiced with their weapons and learned the local geography. They mapped the forest paths and marked safe zones. But they had not seen the shadow maw yet. During the day, the forest seemed peaceful and safe. The Veltar had warned them many times. Do not go to the ground when the sun set, they said. Stay high in the trees. The shadow maw owns the darkness. But humans were curious by nature. They wanted to see this creature that had terrorized an entire civilization for thousands of years. On a Tuesday morning, Supply Officer Kelly Hudson took a team to collect water from a stream near the camp. The stream was only a 10-minute walk from the base of the Crystal Cities. 4 humans went with her. two security guards named Tom Price and Eddie Clark, a communications officer named Amy Wells, and a medic named Dr. Sam Roberts. They had done this same water run 20 times before. It was routine, safe, boring work. The suns were high in the sky. The forest was quiet except for the singing of the flower birds. Kelly was filling the last water container when she heard Amy scream. She turned around and saw Death. The Shadow Maw stood 15 feet away, between the humans and their path back to the camp. It was everything the Veltar had described and worse. 12 feet tall, covered in scales that looked like black metal. Its claws were longer than Kelly's arm and curved like swords. Its eyes were yellow and intelligent, studying the humans, like a cat studies mice, but what scared Kelly most was how quiet it had been. Something that big should not be able to move without making noise, but it had crept up on them like a ghost. "Run!" she shouted. Tom Price raised his plasma rifle and fired. The bright energy bolt hit the Shadow Maw in the chest and did nothing. The creature's armored hide absorbed the blast like it was nothing more than a flashlight. Eddie Clark fired. Next, then again. The plasma bolts bounced off the creature's scales, lighting up the forest but not hurting the monster. The Shadow Maw moved. It was fast. Faster than anything that big should be. It crossed the distance to Tom Price in 2 steps. One swipe of its claws cut through the man's body armor like paper. Tom fell to the ground, not moving. Amy Wells tried to run, but the Shadow Maw was between her and the escape route. It caught her with its other claws. She stopped screaming very suddenly. "This way," Kelly shouted. She ran deeper into the forest, away from the camp, but away from the monster. Eddie Clark and Dr. Roberts followed her. They ran for 10 minutes before stopping to catch their breath. The Shadow Maw did not follow them. When they looked back, it was gone. So were Tom and Amy. Kelly used her radio to call for help. "Base, this is Kelly. We have a situation. The Shadow Maw attacked us. Tom and Amy are dead. We need immediate extraction." "Jake." Morrison's voice came through the static. "Kelly, where are you?" "Half a mile southwest of the stream. The thing just appeared out of nowhere. Our weapons didn't even scratch it. Stay where you are. We're coming to get you." Jake Morrison climbed down from the Crystal City faster than he had ever moved before. Ryan Blake was already waiting with a full security team. They had heavy weapons, plasma cannons, explosive charges, and armor-piercing rounds. "How many?" Ryan asked as they ran toward the forest. 3 survivors. 2 dead, Jake said. "The creature is gone, but it might come back." They found Kelly and the others hiding behind a fallen log. Dr. Roberts was treating Eddie Clark for cuts on his arms from running through thorn bushes. All 3 survivors were shaking. "Tell me exactly what happened," Jake said. Kelly took a deep breath. "We were filling the water containers, normal routine. Then Amy screamed. I looked up and it was just there. No sound, no warning. It was like it materialized out of thin air. You shot it?" Ryan asked. Tom and Eddie both did. Direct hits to the chest. The plasma bolts just bounced off. It didn't even slow down. Jake looked at the plasma rifle Eddie was still holding. These weapons could punch through steel armor. If they couldn't hurt the Shadow Maw, then the creature was tougher than anything humans had ever faced. "We need to get back to base," Jake said. Now, they found the bodies of Tom Price and Amy Wells near the stream. The Shadow Maw had killed them quickly but had not eaten them. It had left them where they fell and disappeared back into the forest. "Why? Didn't it eat them?" Dr. Roberts asked. "Maybe it wasn't hungry," Ryan said. "Maybe it was just defending territory." Jake looked at the claw marks on the trees around the stream. They were deep gouges in the crystal bark, almost 2 inches into the solid wood. Or maybe it was sending a message. They carried the bodies back to the base. The entire crew gathered to hear what had happened. Everyone was quiet when Jake finished telling the story. "So our weapons don't work," said engineer Pete Davis. "What do we do now?" "We could leave," suggested pilot Nancy Lee. "Find another planet." "No," Jake said firmly. "We're not running away." Dr. Martinez looked up from her tablet where she had been taking notes. The Veltar have been dealing with these creatures for thousands of years. Maybe we should ask them for advice. I already did, Jake said. Zephylos told me that fighting the Shadow Maw is impossible. He said we should build our settlement in the trees like they do. And what did you tell him? Jake smiled. It was the same smile he had worn 3 weeks ago when he first heard about the Shadow Maw. I told him we would consider it. An hour later, the Veltar delegation came to the human camp. Zephylos led them, his crystal body flickering with worried lights. Behind him came 4 other Veltar, including a younger one named Cathara, who had been learning human language. We heard about the attack, Zephylos said through the translator. We are sorry for your loss. We warned you about the danger. You did, Jake agreed. And we should have listened better. Will you leave now? Cathara asked. Will you go back to your skyship and find another world? Jake looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. Some of them probably wanted to leave. Fighting an unkillable monster was not what they had signed up for. No, Jake said. We're staying. The Veltar-S lights dimmed with confusion. But the Shadow Maw will kill more of you. You cannot fight it. Maybe not with plasma rifles, Jake said. But there are other ways to hunt dangerous animals. Hunt? Zephylos made a sound like breaking glass. You want to hunt the Shadow Maw? That's what humans do, Ryan Blake said, stepping forward. We've been hunting apex predators since we lived in caves. Bears, lions, wolves, crocodiles. If it's at the top of the food chain, we've probably hunted it. But the Shadow Maw is different. It is too strong, too smart, too fast. Dr. Martinez closed her tablet and looked at the Veltar. On our world, there used to be creatures called mammoths. They were huge, covered in thick fur with tusks longer than a man. They seemed impossible to kill, but humans hunted them anyway, using spears and traps and teamwork. And now? Cathara asked. Now they're all dead, Lisa said simply. Humans ate them all. The Veltar-S lights flickered with something that might have been fear. But they were not afraid of the Shadow Maw. Anymore, they were afraid of the humans. You really think you can kill it? Zephylos asked. Jake nodded. We're going to try. Ryan, start planning. I want to know everything about this creature, how it moves, where it sleeps, what it eats. We're going hunting. The Veltar delegation left quickly after that, their harmonious voices filled with worried notes. They had lived with the Shadow Maw for thousands of years, accepting it as an unchangeable part of their world, but humans did not accept unchangeable things. They changed them. The hunt was about to begin. 2 weeks had passed since the humans decided to hunt the Shadow Maw. Ryan Blake had turned the human camp into a war room. Maps covered every table. Photos of claw marks and tracks hung on the walls. The security chief had barely slept, spending his nights planning and his days scouting. First attempt failed because we underestimated its speed, Ryan said to the gathered crew. Second attempt failed because we underestimated its intelligence. It learned our trap and avoided it. Jake Morrison nodded. They had tried twice to kill the Shadow Maw, and twice it had escaped. Worse, it seemed to be learning from each encounter. The creature was adapting to human tactics. What about the third plan? Asked Danny Price, the explosives expert. He was a short man with steady hands, and a talent for making things explode at exactly the right moment. The third plan is different, Ryan said. We're not going to hunt it. We're going to let it hunt us. Dr. Lisa Martinez looked up from her research notes. That sounds extremely dangerous. It is, Ryan admitted. But it's also our best chance. This creature is a predator. It thinks like a predator. It hunts alone, it's territorial, and it's confident. Maybe too confident. Jake studied the map on the table. Red X marks showed where the Shadow Maw had been spotted. Yellow circles showed where it had killed prey. Blue lines showed its hunting routes through the forest. You want to use bait, Jake? Sod, not bait, Ryan corrected. An opportunity. Something that looks easy but isn't? The plan was simple but risky. Kelly Hudson would make a supply run to the stream where the first attack had happened. She would go alone, apparently defenseless, at dusk when the Shadow Maw usually started hunting. But she would not actually be alone. Danny Price would hide in the trees with shaped charges powerful enough to crack the creature's armor. Ryan Blake would be positioned with a heavy plasma cannon. 2 other security officers would cover escape routes with armor-piercing rounds. The Shadow Maw would see an easy target and attack. When it committed to the kill, the humans would spring. "They're trapped. Are you sure about this?" Jake asked Kelly. "You don't have to do this." Kelly Hudson was a tough woman from Texas who had served in the Space Marines before joining the Exploration Service. She had volunteered for the job without hesitation. "That thing killed my friends," she said. "I want to be the one who kills it back." The Veltar had watched the human preparations with growing alarm. Zephylos came to the camp every day to try to talk them out of their plan. "This is madness," he said, his crystal body flickering with distressed lights. "The Shadow Maw has killed hundreds of my people over the centuries. It cannot be defeated." "Your people tried to avoid it," Jake replied. "We're going to face it directly. And if you fail? If it kills more of you, then we'll try again with a different plan." Zephylos made a sound like wind through broken glass. "You humans are either very brave or very foolish. Sometimes there's no difference," Jake said. The trap was set on a Wednesday evening. The 2 suns were setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Kelly walked down the familiar path to the stream, carrying empty water containers. She moved normally, not looking around for danger. To any observer, she appeared to be just another human doing routine work, but every step was planned. Every movement was calculated. Kelly knew exactly where her backup was hidden. She knew exactly where to run when the time came. The forest grew quiet as darkness fell. The flower birds stopped singing. The 6-legged rabbit creatures hid in their burrows. Even the insects seemed to sense that something dangerous was moving through the trees. Kelly reached the stream and began filling her containers. The water gurgled softly in the growing darkness. She hummed a song from Earth, trying to look relaxed and unaware. Ryan Blake watched through his rifle scope from 50 yards away. His finger rested on the trigger of the plasma cannon. The weapon was 3 times more powerful than a standard rifle, designed for destroying vehicles and fortifications. Danny Price crouched in a tree above the stream, his finger on the detonator. The shaped charges were hidden in the ground around the clearing. When they exploded, they would send metal fragments flying upward at incredible speed. "Movement," whispered Eddie Clark through the radio. He was watching the northern approach. "Something big coming through the trees." Kelly's hands did not shake as she filled the last water container. She had been in combat before. She knew how to stay calm when death was approaching. The Shadow Maw stepped into the clearing. It was even bigger than Kelly remembered. In the dim light, it looked like a moving shadow with glowing yellow eyes. Its claws scraped against the crystal bark of the trees as it moved. Its breathing was deep and slow. Like a sleeping dragon. The creature studied Kelly for a long moment. Its intelligent eyes examined her, the clearing, the trees around them. It was looking for a trap. Kelly did not run. She did not look scared. She kept filling her water containers as if she had not noticed the monster standing 20 feet away. The Shadow Maw took a step forward. Kelly looked up and pretended to be surprised. "Oh," she said out loud. "Hello there." The creature's head tilted slightly. It had probably never heard prey speak to it before. All the Veltar did when they saw it was scream and run. "You're a big one, aren't you?" Kelly said conversationally. She slowly stood up, water containers in her hands. "Tom and Amy never got a good look at you before you killed them." The Shadow Maw snarled, showing teeth like kitchen knives. It recognized a challenge when it heard one. "Come on then," Kelly said. "Let's finish this." The creature charged. It moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. But Kelly was ready. She dove to the left, dropping the water containers and rolling behind a fallen log. The Shadow Maw's claws raked through the air where she had been standing. It spun around, looking for its prey, and found itself standing directly over Danny Price's. Hidden explosives, now. Ryan shouted into his radio. Danny pressed the detonator. The shaped charges exploded upward with a sound like thunder. Metal fragments traveling at supersonic speed punched through the Shadow Maw's armored hide. The creature roared in pain and surprise. Staggering backward, Ryan Blake fired the plasma cannon. The heavy energy bolt struck the wounded creature in the chest, burning through scales that had been cracked by the explosion. For the first time in its life, the Shadow Maw felt real pain, but it did not die. The creature was hurt, bleeding from dozens of wounds, but it was still dangerous. It looked around the clearing with rage in its yellow eyes, finally understanding that it had been tricked. Hit it again, Jake shouted through the radio, but the Shadow Maw did not give them a chance. It leaped toward Ryan's position, moving faster than the security chief could reload his weapon. Ryan dove aside as claws raked a tree where he had been hiding. Kelly Hudson emerged from behind the log with a plasma rifle in her hands. She had been waiting for this moment for 2 weeks. She aimed carefully at the creature's head and pulled the trigger. The energy bolt hit the Shadow Maw in the left eye. The creature's roar of pain echoed through the forest. It spun around, half-blind, looking for the source of this new attack. Danny Price dropped from his tree with a plasma pistol in each hand. He landed on the creature's back and pressed both weapons against its neck, where the armor was thinnest. "This is for Tom and Amy," he said, and pulled both triggers. The twin plasma bolts burned through the Shadow Maw's neck. The creature tried to shake Danny off, but the explosives expert held on. He fired again and again, each shot weakening the monster further. The Shadow Maw fell to its knees, then to its side. Its breathing became labored. The yellow light in its remaining eye began to fade. Kelly walked over to the dying creature. She looked down at the thing that had terrorized an entire species for thousands of years. "Not so tough after all," she said. The Shadow Maw made one last sound, somewhere between a growl and a sigh. Then it was still. Ryan Blake approached carefully, his plasma cannon ready. He poked the creature with his foot. It did not move. "Is it dead?" Danny asked. Dr. Martinez appeared with a medical scanner. She had been watching from a safe distance, ready to treat any wounded humans. Now she ran the scanner over the Shadow Maw's body. "No life signs," she confirmed. "It's dead." The humans gathered around their kill. They had done what the Veltar said was impossible. They had hunted and killed an apex predator. "Jake," Kelly said into her radio, "you better get down here and bring the Veltar. They're going to want to see this." Within an hour, the entire human crew and a delegation of Veltar had gathered around the dead Shadow Maw. The crystal beings stood in silence, their lights flickering with emotions that had no names. "It is really dead?" Zephylos asked. "Very dead," Jake confirmed. "How?" "Teamwork," Ryan said. "Planning. And the right tools for the job." Kethara, the young Veltar who had been learning human language, approached the body. "For my whole life, I was told this creature could not be killed. My parents were told the same thing. And their parents before them." "Well," Jake said, "now, different." Dr. Martinez was already taking samples from the creature's hide and claws. "The muscle structure is fascinating. And look at these scales. They're not just armor, they're energy absorbers. That's why plasma bolts bounced off." "What happens now?" Zephylos asked. Jake looked at the dead monster, then at the Veltar delegation. "Now we make sure this never happens again." The news spread through the human camp faster than wildfire. The Shadow Maw was dead. The impossible had been done. But while everyone was celebrating the victory, Chef Maria Santos was thinking about something completely different. "How much meat do you think that thing has on it?" she asked Dr. Martinez. Lisa looked up from where she was taking samples from the dead creature. "I haven't calculated the exact weight, but probably around 800 pounds of usable meat." "Why?" Maria grinned. She was a large woman from Mexico who had cooked for space crews for 15 years. She had fed people on mining stations, research bases, and colony ships, but she had never cooked an apex predator before. "We've been eating nothing but protein bars and synthetic food for 3 weeks, Maria said. "That thing looks like it has enough fresh meat to feed the whole crew for a month." "You want to eat it?" Lisa asked, surprised. "Why not? Meat is meat. And we killed it fair and square." Dr. Martinez ran her scanner over a piece of the creature's flesh. "The tissue appears to be safe for human consumption. High protein content, low fat? Actually, it might be quite nutritious. Word of Maria's plan reached Captain Morrison within minutes. He found the chef standing next to the dead Shadow Maw with a set of butcher knives and a measuring tape. "Maria, what exactly are you planning?" Jake asked. "Dinner," she said simply. "Real dinner with real meat." When was the last time this crew had a proper meal? Jake had to admit she had a point. The food supplies they had brought from Earth were running low. They had been supplementing with local fruits and vegetables, but the humans needed protein. "Lots of it. The Veltar aren't going to like this," Jake warned. "The Veltar don't eat meat at all," Maria replied. "They won't understand anyway." Within 2 hours, Maria had organized the biggest butchering operation in human space exploration. History. She directed Danny Price and Eddie Clark as they used plasma cutters to remove the creature's hide. Ryan Blake helped her identify the best cuts of meat. Even Dr. Martinez joined in, fascinated by the creature's anatomy. The Shadow Maw was built like a perfect killing machine, but it was also built like a very large, very muscular animal. The meat looked similar to beef, but darker and with a different texture. "The muscle fibers are denser than anything from Earth," Lisa explained as they worked. "This creature was incredibly strong. The meat is probably going to be tough unless we cook it right." "Leave that to me," Maria said confidently. "I've cooked everything from Earth buffalo to Martian rockfish. I can handle one alien predator." The Veltar delegation arrived just as the humans were finishing the butchering process. Zephylos and his companions stopped at the edge of the clearing, their crystal bodies flickering with confused lights. "What are you doing?" Zephylos asked through the translator. "Preparing dinner," Jake said matter-of-factly. "You are cutting up the Shadow Maw? We're harvesting the meat. Maria is going to cook it for us." The Veltar made sounds like breaking wind chimes. Their translator struggled to find words for the emotions they were expressing. "You want to eat it?" Cathara asked, her young voice high with disbelief. "That's generally what humans do with meat," Dr. Martinez said, not looking up from her tissue samples. "But it is the Shadow Maw. It is death. It is terror. It has killed hundreds of my people." Maria wiped her hands on a towel and looked at the Veltar. "And now it's dinner. That's how humans work. We don't just beat our enemies, we eat them." The Veltar's lights dimmed to almost nothing. This concept was so foreign to them that their translators could barely process it. "On our world," Jake explained, "humans have always eaten the things they hunt. Bears, deer, fish, birds, even some things that used to hunt us. We used to share the world with giant predators called saber-toothed cats. Now they're extinct, and we're still here." "You ate them too?" Zephylos asked weakly. "Probably," Jake said with a shrug. "Humans eat everything." By evening, Maria had set up a massive cooking operation. She had built 3 fire pits using stones from the stream. Large pieces of Shadow Maw meat hung over the fires on improvised spits. Smaller cuts sizzled on metal plates heated by plasma torches. The smell filled the air around the human camp. It was rich and smoky like barbecue, but with an exotic twist. The local spices that Dr. Martinez had found added flavors that reminded the humans of home while being completely alien. "Smells like beef," said pilot Nancy Lee, breathing deeply. "Tastes better," said engineer Pete Davis, who had volunteered to be the first taste tester. "It's like the best steak you ever had, but more substantial." Maria had prepared the meat in several different ways. Some was roasted slowly over low heat until it was tender enough to cut with a fork. Other pieces or grilled quickly at high temperature, leaving the outside crispy and the inside juicy. She had even made something that looked like hamburgers using ground Shadow Maw meat. The entire human crew gathered around the fires as the sun set. They sat on logs and folding chairs, holding plates of what had been their greatest enemy just hours before. "To Tom Price and Amy Wells," Jake said, raising a cup of the local fruit wine. "They didn't live to see this moment, but they died so we could have it." "To Tom and Amy," the crew replied in unison. The Veltar delegation watched from a safe distance. They had been invited to join the meal, but they politely declined. They were herbivores by nature and found the entire concept of eating meat disturbing. The flavor is incredible, Dr. Martinez said between bites. There's something almost spicy about it. And the texture is perfect now that Maria figured out how to cook it properly. What do you think it tastes like? Asked communications officer. That's right. Like victory, said Ryan Blake, which made everyone laugh. Danny Price held up a piece of meat on his fork. You know what's funny? This thing terrorized an entire planet for thousands of years. And now we're sitting here eating it like it's nothing special. That's humans for you, said Kelly Hudson. We turn everything into food eventually. The conversation around the fire was relaxed and cheerful. The humans talked about their homeworlds, their families, their plans for the colony. They shared stories about other dangerous animals they had encountered in their travels, but the Veltar could not understand the casual attitude. Zephylos approached Jake as the meal was winding down. How can you be so calm? The crystal being asked. You have just eaten the flesh of the creature that has haunted my people's nightmares for millennia. Jake looked up from his plate. Zephylos, let me ask you something. What did your people do after they saw us kill the Shadow Maw? We celebrated. We sang songs of joy. We told stories of the brave sky people who defeated the monster. And what are we doing right now? Zephylos looked around at the humans enjoying their meal. You are eating it. Exactly. You celebrate by singing songs. We celebrate by eating. Our enemies, it's more practical. Dr. Martinez joined the conversation. In human culture, eating something is often a sign of respect. We honor the creature by not wasting any part of it. But also, added Maria, it sends a message to any other Shadow Maws out there, to any other predators on this world. We're not just visitors here, we're the new apex predators, the Veltars. Lights flickered with something that might have been understanding or might have been fear. There are more Shadow Maws, Cathara said quietly, in the deep forests, in the mountain caves. What will you do about them? Ryan Blake looked up from his meal. Hunt them, kill them. And then, he gestured to his plate, eat them too, all of them. As many as it takes, Jake said. Your people have been hiding from these creatures for thousands of years. That's not living, that's just surviving. We're going to change that. As the night wore on, the humans continued eating and talking. They discussed plans for expanding the colony, for bringing more people from Earth, for exploring the rest of the planet. They talked about the future like the Shadow Maw problem was already solved, which, from their perspective, it was. Maria started planning her next meal. I wonder what the other predators on this world taste like, she mused. Dr. Martinez mentioned something called a crystal bear in the mountains. Probably like chicken, said Danny Price, which was apparently a very funny joke because all the humans laughed. The Veltar did not understand the joke. They did not understand most human humor. But they were beginning to understand something else. The humans were not just visitors to this world. They were not just temporary guests who would eventually leave. They were colonizers. They were settlers. They were the new owners of this planet, and they had just eaten the previous owners for dinner. The thought terrified and amazed the Veltar in equal measure. For the first time in their history, they began to believe that their world might actually be safe. As long as they stayed on the humans' good side. The barbecue continued late into the night, with the humans sharing stories and making plans. Above them, the two moons of the alien world cast silver light through the purple trees, and in the deep forests, other Shadow Maws caught the scent of smoke and cooking meat, not knowing that their age of dominance had just ended with dinner. 6 months had passed since the first Shadow Maw barbecue. The human colony on the Veltar world had grown from a small camp to a thriving settlement. 3 more ships had arrived from Earth, bringing new colonists, equipment, and supplies, but most importantly, they had brought more hunters. Ben Carter stood on the porch of Morrison's Apex Predator Grill, watching the morning crowd gather for breakfast. The restaurant had started as a joke, but it had quickly become the most popular eating place in the colony. People came from all over the settlement to try Maria Santos's famous Shadow Maw. Stakes. Ben was a professional hunter from Montana who had spent 20 years tracking dangerous animals on a dozen different worlds. When he heard about the Shadowmaw problem, he had volunteered immediately. Hunting apex predators was his specialty. "How many did you bag yesterday?" asked Dr. Martinez, sitting down at a table with her morning coffee. "3," Ben said proudly. "2 adults and 1 juvenile. Found them denning in a cave system about 50 miles north." "That brings the total to what, 47? 48, actually. Ryan's team got 1 near the eastern mountains yesterday evening." Dr. Martinez shook her head in amazement. In 6 months, the humans had gone from being terrorized by a single Shadowmaw to running organized hunting expeditions that were systematically eliminating the species from the planet. The Veltar had watched this transformation with growing wonder. Their cities, which had been built high in the trees for protection, were slowly expanding downward. For the first time in thousands of years, Veltar children were playing on the ground. Cathara approached Ben's table. The young Veltar had become fascinated by human hunting techniques and spent most of her time learning from the colonists. "Ben," she said in her improving English, "my people found tracks near the crystal caves." "Very large tracks." Ben looked up with interest. "How large?" "Larger than any Shadowmaw we have seen before. The claws marks go deeper into the crystal than normal." "Breeding alpha," Ben said immediately. "I've been wondering when we'd find one of those." The hunting expeditions had revealed that Shadowmaws had a complex social structure. Most were solitary hunters, but there were larger, older specimens that seemed to control territory and breeding. These alpha Shadowmaws were bigger, smarter, and more dangerous than the regular ones. "Want to come along on the hunt?" Ben asked Cathara. The young Valtar's crystal body lit up with excitement. "Really? You would let me join a hunt? Why not? You've learned more about tracking than most humans. Just promise me you'll stay back when we engage the target." "I promise." Dr. Martinez smiled as she watched the interaction. The relationship between humans and Veltar had evolved dramatically. The crystal beings had gone from treating humans as honored guests to treating them as well, as the apex predators they were. The hunt for the alpha Shadowmaw took 3 days. Ben's team tracked the creature through dense forest, across rocky streams, and up into the mountain caves where the largest predators made their homes. They found it in a cavern deep underground. The alpha was massive, nearly 15 feet tall, and covered in scales that looked like black diamond. Its claws were longer than swords, and its eyes glowed with an intelligence that was almost human. "That's the biggest one yet," whispered Kelly Hudson, who had become one of Ben's most skilled hunters. "And probably the smartest," Ben replied. "Look at how it's positioned itself. It knows we're here." The alpha Shadowmaw stood at the back of the cave, surrounded by the bones of its prey. It studied the humans with calculating eyes, clearly planning its attack strategy. "This one won't fall for the usual tricks," Ben said. "We need something special." The battle lasted for 2 hours. The alpha was everything Ben had expected, and more. It was faster than the smaller Shadowmaws, stronger, and much more cunning. It used the cave environment to its advantage, attacking from unexpected angles and retreating when the humans tried to surround it. But humans were patient hunters. They had evolved to chase prey across vast distances, wearing them down over time. And they had technology that no natural predator could match. In the end, it was Danny Price who brought down the alpha. He used a new type of explosive that Dr. Martinez had developed, based on analysis of Shadowmaw armor. The blast cracked the creature's diamond-hard scales, and Ryan Blake finished it with a plasma cannon shot to the head. The alpha Shadowmaw fell with a sound like a collapsing building. "That's got to be at least 1,200 pounds of meat," said Maria Santos when they brought the body back to the colony. "I'm going to need a bigger grill." The death of the alpha marked the end of organized Shadowmaw resistance on the planet. Without their leader, the remaining creatures became scattered and disorganized. Within another month, Ben's hunting teams had eliminated them entirely. The last Shadowmaw died on a Tuesday afternoon, killed by a hunting party of human teenagers who had been born in space and raised on stories of Earth's great hunts. They posed for pictures with their kill, grinning like their ancestors had grinned over mammoth carcasses 10,000 years earlier. "That's it," Ben announced at the evening meal. "Shadow Maws are officially extinct on this continent." The human colonists cheered. The Veltar delegation sat in stunned silence. "All of them?" Zephylos asked. "Every single Shadow Maw?" "Every single one," Ben confirmed. "We've been tracking their population for months. The last breeding pair was eliminated 3 weeks ago. There might be a few isolated individuals on other continents, but they're no longer a viable species." Dr. Martinez consulted her tablet. "From an ecological perspective, it's actually quite remarkable. A species that had dominated this ecosystem for millions of years, eliminated in 6 months by an invasive predator." "We're the invasive predator?" asked pilot Nancy Lee. "The most successful invasive predator in galactic history," Lisa confirmed. The implications of this success were not lost on anyone. Word had spread to other human colonies, other exploration teams, other species. Everywhere humans went, apex predators seemed to mysteriously disappear and end up on dinner plates. Captain Morrison stood up to address the crowd. "I've received word from Earth Command. They're sending a full colonization fleet. 10,000 settlers, complete terraforming equipment and industrial infrastructure. This world is officially becoming New Montana." The name was Ben Carter's suggestion, in honor of his home state and its hunting traditions. "What about us?" Cathara asked. "What happens to the Veltar?" "You're welcome to stay," Jake said. "This is your world too. In fact, we could use your help. You know this planet better than anyone." The young Veltar looked around at the humans celebrating their complete domination of the food chain. "Will you teach us to hunt?" Ben Carter laughed. "Sure, kid, but first you need to learn to eat meat." "I can try," Cathara said bravely. "If humans can eat Shadow Maws, maybe Veltar can learn too." Dr. Martinez made a note on her tablet. "Interspecies dietary adaptation? This could be fascinating." Research. As the celebration continued, a new ship appeared in the evening sky. It was not from Earth. The sleek vessel bore the markings of the Galactic Council, the organization that governed relations between spacefaring species. The ship landed near the human settlement, and a delegation emerged. There were Krexthal warriors with their red armor and battle scars. There were Zephyrian diplomats with their flowing robes and multiple arms. There were even some hegemony representatives, the crystalline beings who claimed to be the oldest civilization in the galaxy. They had come to investigate reports of a species that had defeated an apex predator. War Master Gexel of the Krexthal led the delegation. The Krexthal were famous throughout the galaxy as the ultimate warriors. They prided themselves on their combat skills and their fearless nature. "We have heard impossible stories," Gexel announced through his translator. "Stories of soft mammals defeating the legendary Shadow Maw. We have come to see if these stories are true." Jake Morrison stepped forward to greet the delegation. "They're true. Would you like to see the evidence?" "Evidence?" Jake gestured toward Morrison's Apex Predator Grill, where Maria Santos was preparing the evening special. "Would you like to try our Shadow Maw burger? It's today's special. Comes with a side of Crystal Bear bacon." The galactic delegation stared at the menu board in shocked silence. Listed alongside normal human food were dishes made from creatures that had terrorized multiple worlds: Shadow Maw steaks, Crystal Bear ribs, Mountain Panther chops, and something called Void Serpent soup. "You eat them?" asked a Zephyrian diplomat, her forearms trembling with disbelief. "Best meat in the galaxy," said Maria proudly. "High protein, low fat, and full of flavor. The Shadow Maw especially pairs well with the local mushrooms." War Master Gexel studied the menu with the expression of someone whose entire worldview was crumbling. The Krexthal were known as the fiercest warriors in space. They had conquered dozens of worlds through superior combat skills, but they had never thought to eat their enemies. "How many apex predators have you eliminated?" asked a hegemony representative. "On this world?" "All of them," Ben Carter said casually. We're thinking about starting safari tours for other species. Come hunt dangerous game on a human world. We guarantee you'll go home with a trophy. And a full stomach, added Maria. The galactic delegation exchanged nervous glances.